Welcome back to our How to ISO series, week 5. This week we're going to look at putting together an implementation plan to support implementation of our management system to meet the ISO standards we're seeking to meet. It's a little bit of an extension of week 4 last week when we looked at doing a gap analysis. Primarily we're going to be taking those actions from the gap analysis and bringing them through into our implementation plan. Okay, some of the opportunities and why would we put together an implementation plan? Well, it does give us the opportunity to identify and assign out roles and responsibilities for implementation of the management system within our business. Now, if you're a compliance manager or safety manager or the person who's been given the job of implementing the management system, here's a fantastic opportunity to draw on skill sets in your business as well as get other people involved. So it's not all falling on your shoulders. Second opportunity there, yes, it is a great way of putting together this kind of implementation plan and then really using that as the basis to demonstrate to management, well, here's the scope of work involved. Here's actually what's involved in implementing a management system to meet ISO requirements. Very often we find that top management don't really understand the scope of work involved, so here's that chance to demonstrate it to them and get appropriate resources to support what you're doing. With respect to top management, again, it's something we've advocated right through our How to ISO series. Let's get them involved as much as we can. Obviously, they have limited time, but at different points within the process, and we really feel you should do this during the implementation process as well. And we'll talk about some opportunities to do that. Okay, so what we're really going to do, this is an example of the gap analysis we looked at in week 4 of our series. And it's really about taking, we had the requirement from a standard and we self-evaluated, well, what processes and tools do we have in place to meet that requirement? And we talked about why that was important. But in terms of our implementation plan, we're really focusing on the actions required throughout this gap analysis. And we're going to take those actions and put them into a formal kind of implementation plan or action plan, project plan, whatever you want to call it. If you're familiar with project management methodologies, this will be you'll be very familiar with this, but it's something we certainly advocate you do to support development of your system. You may want to, as a business, for the improvement opportunities that have been identified, ones that are valuable, why not put those in your action plan, implementation plan straight away as well. Very simple example. Yes, if our gap analysis identified that with respect to clauses relating to competence and awareness that we had a bit of work to do, here's 4 action items we had to do. It's really about implementation plan, and you'll see these headings in our example that you can download from our resources page. It's really about saying, well, assigning responsibilities. The second point we add in there to say, well, what are any potential barriers to implementation? If we are going to implement a process around identifying training needs, what might be some barriers to that? There may be some, there may be none, but it's worth thinking about early in your implementation planning. How are we going to take action on these items here? What are the resources involved? And the timeframes are some of the basics of what you can do there. Second example, yes, around management review and continual improvement. Again, we've done our gap analysis, what's missing with respect to management review requirements, and we're going to take these action items and from the gap analysis and put them into our implementation plan. Management reviews, a good example where you can get top management involved. I've worked with lots of companies who say, well, we'll implement the management system and we'll give it some time to be in place, implement it for a while, and then we'll do a management review. We actually advocate a slightly different approach to that with our customers. We say, well, even during the implementation, if you're trying to meet several standards and it might take you 12 months to do that, we'll have management reviews 2 or 3 times during that time frame, where really the focus will be on implementation rather than all of the management review requirements of the standard, but just getting that management to look at the progressive implementation. And it gives you that opportunity if there's been any barriers or certain action items have fallen behind time, you can get management support to get something done about that. That's why we advocate that. As well, it's very good evidence and history of top management support by the time you go to seek external audit certification, if you can show the involvement of top management at opportune times during the implementation process as well. We're going to upload two templates, a simple one and a more detailed implementation plan. The latter one you can use for if you've got a fairly big project, implementation project, if you're trying to meet several standards, 2 or 3 of those ISO management system standards. This slide's just highlighting that, yes, if you put in a start date and a end date and a duration for some of your action items there, it'll actually generate a little bit of an implementation timeline for you. Our advice, if you download either of those plans, they're examples if you like. So look through the suggested action items in there and replace them either with your with the action items you identified from your gap analysis. It's really about using those examples as a bit of a template, because you'll obviously have different action items to perhaps what's in the template there. The comprehensive one, or the more detailed one, implementation plan, yes, that's, as I mentioned, for if you're trying to meet several standards. So if you're only going for one standard, you may well want to edit that down as well. Hope you've enjoyed today's session. We hope it's helping you on your journey to meeting requirements of ISO standards. Where you'll find those resources on our resources page on our website at irmsystems.com.au. Search down for the heading How to ISO series, and you see all the resources we mentioned in this series. They're free to download. We don't ask for your email or any details like that. Just click on them and they'll download straight away. If you've missed any previous videos in our How to ISO series, you can click on our blog page. They're all there, or look for our YouTube channel, IRM Systems. Again, thanks for listening. We hope you've learned something today.